Yeah.
If it was going to be a two-parter, I think it would have been fine.
Even one film. I reckon they could have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have easily condensed. I reckon there's an hour of good stuff in each film. And if
it's a 3-hour film.
Yeah. So the problem now is people, I think, are already wanting to do fan edits now. Or will do when it's on DVD. So you can pick it.
Yeah.
But the problem is he's directed... Well, I suppose it's clever on Peter Jackson's part. They've been directed in such a way to edit them would be incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Because there is so much he's added into it. I mean,
it's just hard to like edit those scenes out. And
if you edited the action scenes, they would be incomprehensible.
Yeah. You're like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, it's him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just too many added things onto the trilogy. Too much of everything.
Yeah.
It's just too much is the problem.
Indulgence to the max.
Indulgence to the max. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to give to Botfer. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I think
I'll give it the same as the other two.
Just that first. This is, I think, the most frustrating of all of them.
Yeah, I think it is as well. Yeah.
Because it's just so much good stuff in it, and it even has themes and stuff.
Themes and interesting character moments and stuff for the actors to chew on and yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of this film's problems as well are kind of to do with the way the industry's changed since Lord of the Rings. Right now, I mean, Lord of the Rings came out and brought fantasy back into vogue, didn't it? It was big and bold, and it wasn't like now, where everything, like, the same month this came out, Hunger Games Part 1 came out.
Yeah.
It's not a new thing anymore to extent. I think this film could not have been made in the 90s, because people would have gone mad with him, like, going like, I'm going to make 3 films out of this one book, and each one will have its...
the industry back then just wouldn't have supported it.
Well, no, it wouldn't even have gotten past script stage.
Exactly, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The industry just didn't support it back in those days. I don't think it would have been, like, vaguely possible.
No.
But, like, you know, the famous line that the chairman of New Line Cinema said to Peter Jackson was, because originally Lord of the Rings pitched to be 2 films. It's a well-known story. Where he went in, it was the last meeting with like the last film studio in Hollywood. Everyone else had turned him down, rejected him. The Weinsteins had cast him adrift. Biggest mistake I've ever made. And Bob Shaver, head of New Line Cinema, whatever the fuck his name was, basically said, Peter, why the fuck would you make Lord of the Rings into 2 films? It's 3 books. Make it 3 films. And he was like, oh right, cool, great. But, you know, it started off with Harry Potter. You know, Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2. You know, Deathly Hallows is a bloated mess anyway. As a book, and all the film does is just highlight what a bloated mess the book is. You know, could have condensed it into 1 film. It would have been fine. Oh, what would have you lost? Dreadful scenes of Daniel Radcliffe trying to do dramatic scenes. We did it with Twilight, with Breaking Dawn Parts 1 and 2. 2 devastatingly awful effects.
Can't talk. I've not seen them.
No, I've seen all of them except for the final one, which is apparently meant to be like the funniest bad one.
Really?
Yeah. It's got like what's he called? That really famous actor. He plays
Pattinson.
No. He plays one of the evil head vampires, but he just like camps it to all hell. It just sounds
Michael Sheen.
Yeah. He just camps it up to all hell apparently.
Really?
So it did it with that. It was going to be awful. They're doing it with they did it with a series called Divergent, a new teen thing. I've got no fucking clue what it is. I'm too old for this shit. And then they've done it with the Hunger Games, with this latest Hunger Games. So
this is what I mean. Now it's not even. As I say, back then in the 90s, it's mainly, I think, a reason. It's just diminished franchises, isn't it? Everything has to be big. Like,
you see, from like an artistic point of view, I can actually justify The Hobbit being 2 parts.
Well, I think 2 parts is fine.
Because it looks like a light book, but a lot of stuff does happen. It's just Tolkien writes it in quite a condensed way that you could expand into a movie version. I think 2 versions is justified. 3 versions is ironically greedy. And there's no point. I mean, like, basically everyone says about this part 1 of the new Hunger Games film is that it's good, decent, but it diminishes the effects of the book. You know.
Well, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's just you're essentially having to pay 16 quid for 1 complete film, and it's a bloated mess anyway.
I dread to think of how much I've spent on the Hobbit trilogy.
You see, but it's just a waste. It's just ripping people off.
10 quid a ticket.
I
bought the Blu-rays.
Yeah, you've bought... So you've spent 30 quid on tickets.
Yeah.
First you bought the Blu-rays in the standard edition,
So
which were a tenner each.
Yeah.
Which is 50 quid. How much were these 3D ones?
Well, that was a Christmas present.
Alright.
So I didn't pay for that. That was 20 quid.
So you've now spent 70 quid.
Yes. And I'll probably
Hobbit
spend another 20 getting the extended cut Battle of the Five Armies.
Yeah. So you've now wasted... you're wasting £90.
Nearly £100 on The Hobbit.
Exactly, but it's just doubling down on all this stuff, isn't it? Now that you can get... I mean, it's not a wonderland of any means of filmmaking, but the 90s, you had at least franchises. You didn't have everything was in a franchise.
Yeah.
You look at the blockbusters then. I'm using 90s. I know The Lord of the Rings came out early 2000s, but they were made in the 90s.
The Lord of the Rings is like the last of that golden era, I think.
Yeah, but you've got like Speed or The Matrix or all these films, or Seven was like a massive hit and stuff. That was a blockbuster. You have all these things, but now it's just doubling down on your investment.
I don't know. I think that's a bit of a...
Yeah. Well, I think now, though, people...
Back in the 90s, it was all about doing sequels to everything.
Yeah, but...
In fact, people got sick to death of sequels.
Yeah. But I think...
you had, smaller, interesting projects like that, but I think that's a bit simplified. There were still lots of crap. It's always been crap blockbusters, except for, in the 70s. It's always been crap.
I think though that there was a definite marking difference between then and now. At least if you went to see Terminator 2, you got a full experience.
That's true. You got a real film.
Yeah, even the bad sequels, they are complete films. Lethal Weapon 4 isn't a good film, but it is a film. It's not part one of a trilogy where it ends with I don't know, Mel Gibson's character being kidnapped and then Danny Glover having to go rescue him.
But this is the thing, though, it's part of a wider issue where movie studios feel that they can't appeal to mass audiences anymore.
Yeah.
So they look for recognisable material with a pre-built-in audience. They found it worked wonders with Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings back in the early 2000s. Like Harry Potter was a big hit-ish as a book. And they had that audience already built in, and the first Harry Potter film made $1 billion or something. Yeah. They were like, holy crap, there's something here.
Yeah.
But it just goes back into what we've talked about before, and there are all these fucking superhero movies, and there's about 50 coming out in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
All these part 1s of 2s and 3s, and so Hunger Games, Catching Fire, which is good, part 3 of the Hunger Games saga, but it's actually part 1 of the 3rd book.
Yeah.
What? I don't even...
Yep.
I'd
say it's just doubling down on your investment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not giving people I don't know why people even bother going to see these films. I feel I didn't even want to really pay to see this. But it's you're basically just saying...
You had to go because it was my birthday.
I know, but I wouldn't have gone by... If someone else had suggested it, I've said, I'm not going to see that. Because you're essentially just telling... You might as well just, burn your money. Because you're just telling them, okay, you make part 1 of a thing and I'll pay
Yeah.
It's like the cinema ticket's tripling in price because you're having to pay to see these bloated, excessive messes.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you think of the way that fantasy's changed since then as well, it's become much more, in a way, mainstream. You've got the success of Game of Thrones.
Well, Game of Thrones changed everything.
Well, yeah, because that's big adult-led, fantasy.
It's adult.
It is adult. It's mature, I think.
Yeah.
You look at that. There is so
everyone just has the head chopped off, and everyone just gets raped and has sex.
So there's so much.
It's mature.
There's so much more quality though in one episode of Game of Thrones than any of these Hobbit films.
That's true.
So why would you even bother to pay to see this? You can just see that.
But that's the thing. The Hobbit films feel almost like a holdover from another era now compared to like Game of Thrones is, and that's pretty much it. There's no really big other fantasy things out there.
Yeah.
Until they do the Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Which I would watch, by the way, if it was a TV series. Sounds like an awesome series of fantasy books.
Yeah.
I'd totally watch them. But I don't see people say Game of Thrones kicked off a new thing of fantasy. What new thing of fantasy? There's been nothing.
No. Game of Thrones is just a thing in and of itself.
There's just been Game of Thrones. It's not really revitalised the genre, I think. It's if it revitalised the genre, I'd at least expected the Game of Thrones rip-offs to appear by now.
Yeah.
You've kind of got historical epics like Marco Polo and...
Oh, that looks dreadful.
Yeah. Trying to ape the Game of Thrones aesthetic, but not fantasy, proper fantasy. But whatever, that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. So, What do you think, ultimately, the moral of us to learn from these trilogy of films?
Well, never make a kids' book into 3 fucking films.
Never make a kids' book into 3 films.
It's trying to make Woody the Pooh into a quadrilogy.
Yeah. Do you think they actually made this darker to try and draw in the Game of Thrones crowd?
Yeah.
I think there's an element of that.
Maybe. But no, because it's not dark in the same way Game of Thrones is dark.
No.
It's more dark in it's more aping the Lord of the Rings style.
Yeah.
Trying to make it epic and huge.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
No, these films don't work.
They're fundamentally broken. Which is a shame, because there's like I've said before, there's lots of great performances and lots of great moments.
Yeah.
This is probably the last time we'll talk about these cursed films
Rex.
on the absence of Waldo.
Yeah.
And so I guess we just want to summarise as much as we can.
Yeah. These were bad ideas from the beginning.
No. Not
when Peter Jackson took them over, then they were bad ideas.
The minute Peter Jackson took over, it was a bad idea. Yeah.
It was a bad idea. The films themselves turned out to be, at best, interesting misfires.
Yeah.
At worst, self-indulgent dreck.
Yeah.
They should have been handled by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
The actors are uniformly good because Peter Jackson knows how to direct actors.
Unlike George Lucas.
Unlike George Lucas. And he knows how to make films look good, but he fails on pretty much everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, these films were just messes.
Yeah. But fascinating messes,
Fascinating messes. Do you prefer these to The Lord of the Rings?
That'd be
because
interesting.
we're looking at these comments and we're good for an argument.